Homeless veteran accused of trespassing shocks everyone when he's called to court. The small courtroom buzzed with murmurs as the homeless man entered, his tattered coat trailing behind him. People whispered, casting judgmental glances at his unkempt beard and weathered face. To the casual observer, he was just another drifter, a man with nowhere to go and nothing to offer society. The charges against him were clear: trespassing on private property. But as the judge prepared to start proceedings, a sudden, unexpected announcement left everyone in the room holding their breath. But before we dive into what happens next, I'd love to know, where are you tuning in from today? Drop a comment below. "All rise!" the clerk called out as the doors opened. A sharply dressed man in a military uniform strode into the room, his medals gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Every head turned, eyes widening in disbelief. The soldier walked directly to the front, standing at attention. "Your Honor," he said firmly, "before you continue, I'd like to address this court regarding the man you're about to judge. He's not who you think he is." This wasn't just another routine trespassing case. 2 weeks prior, Samuel Harper had been arrested for sleeping in the back alley of a downtown office building. The property owner, a well-known real estate mogul, had demanded police remove him, citing concerns about loitering. The arrest made local headlines, with the media painting Samuel as just another homeless man unwilling to pull himself up by his bootstraps. But Samuel wasn't just any man. As the courtroom fell silent, the soldier began recounting a story that none in the room could have anticipated. "Samuel Harper," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion, "is the reason I'm alive today." Gasps echoed through the courtroom. The judge raised an eyebrow, gesturing for the soldier to continue. 15 years ago, in a remote village in Afghanistan, my unit was ambushed. We were outnumbered, outgunned, and certain we wouldn't make it out alive. Samuel, a combat medic at the time, refused to leave anyone behind. He ran through enemy fire, unarmed, to save not just me, but 6 other soldiers. He carried us one by one to safety, despite being injured himself. Samuel, sitting quietly in his worn-out clothes, kept his eyes on the floor. The soldier paused, his voice breaking. "He didn't just save our lives, he gave us a second chance, and now we're letting him fall through the cracks." The courtroom was stunned. The man many had dismissed as a vagrant was, in fact, a decorated war hero. Murmurs broke out among the spectators. Some looked down in shame, while others leaned in, eager to hear more. The judge cleared his throat. "Mr. Harper, is this true?" Samuel finally looked up, his voice calm but tired. "Yes, Your Honor, but I was just doing my job. The real heroes are the ones who didn't make it back." The soldier interjected. "With all due respect, Your Honor, Samuel Harper is the real hero, and it's a disgrace that he's been left to fend for himself after everything he's given to this country." The prosecutor, clearly caught off guard, shuffled her papers. "Your Honor, while Mr. Harper's service is commendable, the fact remains that he was trespassing." Before she could finish, the real estate mogul who had filed the complaint stood up from his seat. His face was pale, his eyes darting nervously. "Your Honor, I'd like to withdraw the charges," he said quickly. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Reynolds, are you certain? You were quite adamant about pursuing this case." Reynolds shifted uncomfortably. "I wasn't aware of Mr. Harper's background. Clearly, this is a misunderstanding." The judge nodded but didn't immediately dismiss the case. Instead, he turned to Samuel. "Mr. Harper, while the charges are being dropped, I'd like to hear from you. Why are you homeless?" Samuel hesitated, then sighed. "After leaving the military, I struggled to adjust to civilian life. I lost my family, my home, and eventually my sense of purpose. I tried to get help, but the system isn't easy to navigate. So I ended up where I am now." The room was silent, the weight of his words sinking in. The soldier stepped forward again. "Your Honor, if I may, I'd like to help Mr. Harper get back on his feet. He deserves more than what society has given him." The judge nodded solemnly. "Mr. Harper, it seems you have people willing to help you. I strongly encourage you to accept their assistance." As the court adjourned, people crowded around Samuel, offering apologies, gratitude, and promises of support. Local reporters who had come to cover a simple trespassing case now had a much bigger story. A hero forgotten by society, finally getting the recognition he deserved. That night, Samuel was offered a place to stay by the soldier who had spoken on his behalf. The two men sat together, reminiscing about their shared past and planning for a brighter future. By the end of the week, Samuel had not only secured temporary housing, but also received multiple job offers from veterans organizations inspired by his story. A local charity even started a fundraiser to help him rebuild his life. And as for the real estate mogul who had tried to prosecute him, public backlash forced him to donate a significant sum to veteran support programs, a small step toward redemption. Samuel Harper's story became a symbol of resilience, a reminder that even the forgotten have untold stories of bravery and sacrifice. And though he had once been overlooked, he now stood as a beacon of hope for others facing similar struggles. The weeks that followed transformed Samuel Harper's life in ways he hadn't dared to imagine. What began as a humiliating court appearance turned into a public reckoning with the treatment of veterans. His story spread rapidly, from local news stations to national headlines. Homeless hero, a forgotten soldier's fight for dignity, became the tagline of the moment, and Samuel was thrust into the spotlight. Despite his reluctance to be the center of attention, Samuel used the opportunity to highlight the struggles of other veterans like him. "This isn't just my story," he said during an interview on a primetime talk show. "There are thousands of men and women who've served this country, who gave everything and have been left with nothing in return. I'm just one of the lucky ones who was finally heard." Organizations began reaching out, eager to collaborate with Samuel on initiatives to support veterans. He found himself consulting on housing programs, offering insight into what those on the streets truly needed. "It's not just about a roof over their heads," Samuel said during a town hall meeting. "It's about respect, understanding, and a real chance to start over." The soldier who had defended him in court, Major David Hargrove, became a close friend and advocate. David invited Samuel to speak at a military base, where young recruits sat in rapt attention as Samuel recounted his journey, from a fearless medic in Afghanistan to a homeless man fighting to survive. "You are more than the uniform," Samuel told them. "And when the time comes to hang it up, don't be afraid to ask for help. There's no shame in needing others. It's what kept me alive back then, and it's what brought me back now." One night, Samuel received an unexpected phone call. The voice on the other end introduced herself as a representative from a major philanthropic foundation. "Mr. Harper, your story has moved millions, including us. We'd like to offer you a position as an ambassador for our veteran outreach programs. It's a salaried role, and we believe you're the perfect person to lead this initiative." Samuel hesitated. He had spent so long feeling invisible, defined by his hardships. Was he ready to take on such a public role? But as he looked around the modest apartment he now called home, filled with letters of gratitude from people inspired by his story, he realized this was his chance to give back. "I'll do it," he said. Months later, Samuel stood on the steps of the Capitol, addressing a crowd of thousands during a rally for veterans' rights. His voice was strong, his presence commanding. "I used to believe my story was over," he said, looking out at the sea of faces. "But now I know it was just beginning. We are more than our struggles, more than our scars. And together we can make sure no one who's fought for this country ever feels forgotten again." As applause erupted, Samuel felt a sense of purpose he hadn't known in years. The boy from a small town, who had once run into enemy fire without hesitation, was now running toward a new mission, to ensure that every veteran had the support they deserved. And for the first time in a long while, Samuel Harper wasn't just surviving, he was thriving. Drop a comment if you enjoyed this story. It doesn't cost you anything, and you'll make me very happy. Thank you, and I look forward to your like.